Hi, and welcome to another edition of Real Review Cinematic Underground. I'm back again with Chuck Koplinski. We've spent our week watching movies and eating large amounts of food. So what did you think of the movies you saw this week? First of all, what did you see?
What did I see? Well, since we've last talked, and it's been a while, I've seen Snow White.
Right.
And The Huntsman. I've seen Men in Black 3,
right,
which we haven't talked about yet. I saw Madagascar 3.
Yes.
And, of course, I saw Prometheus.
Okay. Which of those would you like to tackle first? Because I have thoughts on, I think, 2 out of the...
Well, I know that there's one that's just burning a fire in you right now, so why don't you start with Prometheus?
All right. So we've got Prometheus, again directed by Ridley Scott, who has directed Alien. And a bunch of other movies that I just didn't bother to see, like Robin Hood.
That was a mistake on your part.
Robin Hood, good movie? Okay.
An unfairly maligned film.
All right. Well, Prometheus is well, I won't say it's a prequel.
Why not?
Because I don't think it is.
It's a complete prequel.
It's a story about these, I don't want to call it explorers.
Why not?
I almost wanted to say astronauts, but they're actually explorers.
I would say they're corporate opportunists.
Okay, corporate
and explorers.
Fine. Corporate opportunists and explorers who travel to this planet in search of the answer of where did human beings come from. And eventually what they end up doing is they go down onto the planet, they look around some, you find out very quickly that there may be ulterior motives going on in terms of what they're actually there to do, and then the can of worms is open and all crap breaks loose.
Yeah, it's not a can of worms.
Yeah, it's quite an adventure for them to try and figure out what to do once they start getting answers that aren't so pleasant. Now, I want to say first of all that I'm a big fan of the film Alien. Love Alien from 1979. Sigourney Weaver is brilliant in that film. But with this Prometheus film, I really didn't like it that much. I really didn't like it that much. Because once bad things start happening, my rule would be to get out of there as fast as humanly possible. So I think that's really what my main problem is like they kept going back. They kept trying to answer the unanswerable.
But you don't have that problem with Alien.
No. Mostly
even though she goes after the cat. The worst mistake ever. I mean, really, you're talking about they keep going back. This woman goes back for the frickin' cat.
Okay, now that you say that, that's very true. That's incredibly true. She does go back for the cat.
And I would only have excused that plot point if in the second Alien we found out that the alien had impregnated the cat. Then it would have been worth it and would have been, oh, okay, that's a nice little twist. But they didn't even use that. Yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I say to myself, once the first crew member bites the dust, you get out. You're done.
But you do have the character played by Charlize Theron,
yes,
who is the corporate entity. And, of course, there is someone else from the corporation there that we can't really talk about.
Right.
I mean, that is the thing that's keeping them there.
Agreed.
I had no problem with that. The guys calling the shots on the ship are the ones making them stay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
I had no problem with that. Anyway, I'm sorry.
What, if anything, did you have a problem with? I want to go into that.
Maybe my expectations were too high. I don't know about you.
Yeah, they were a bit too high. I expected an exact tonal replica of Alien, and I got that for the most part.
That's what I got too, and that's what disappointed me. I want something else.
You wanted something else. You wanted. Did you like the grand philosophical ideas that they were putting forth in the film?
I liked them, but I didn't like the fact that they didn't develop them.
Yeah,
okay. Here's the deal. With Alien, you don't have really any expectations. Going into that film, this is just a haunted house movie set in outer space.
Yeah,
okay.
Agreed.
With incredible set design, an incredible new way at that point of looking at an alien creature and how, it interacts with the human beings. I mean, at that point, that film was a landmark, and rightfully so.
Yes.
Rightfully so. This time, though, I mean, if you're going to throw out these, if you're going to start taking bits from 2001, you better have something important to tell me or something important, an important theory to throw out there. You can't start taking bits of 2001 and want to be some profound science fiction movie and then just follow the same line as an alien film where it just becomes, oh God, which guy's going to get eaten next? You can't do that. And my biggest problem was, as I was watching this movie, I kept thinking of Star Trek V.
Okay.
And that's not a movie I should be thinking about while I'm watching this.
Yes.
Okay, Star Trek V, for those who are unfamiliar with it, is the worst of the Star Trek films, and that's where the crew starts to go, and they look for God, and they're going to find some profound answers to questions, just as this thing purports to do. So if you're going to make a great science fiction film, you better not be referencing one that is not a good movie. You know, this is the type of movie, I've always thought an interesting set of columns, a weekly column would be after the hype, I would call it, in which you go back and you look at a movie years after it's come out, a movie that was hyped to death and didn't live up to the hype, but now that the dust is cleared,
it's better.
Well, you look at it more objectively and you try to find out, is it better or was my impression? I would start with Godzilla. The remake, because I was disappointed with that film.
From 1997, that one?
I would start with that one, because I was disappointed with that film. Enough time's gone by, maybe I could look at it more objectively and say, oh, is it the piece of crap I thought? Or maybe that wasn't too bad.
That's an interesting choice.
And I think it's the same thing with Prometheus. I think if I let this thing go for a year and go back and look at it with not as high expectations, maybe my impression of it would be better. That being said, it's a gorgeous film.
It's a gorgeous film. I have no problem with it.
A gorgeous movie.
I saw it in 3D just like Chuck did, and for me, you know, the visuals were the buy-in for me.
And let's just say it's worth a couple extra bucks for the 3D glasses. It really does work.
It really does work. I mean, there are some brilliant film techniques in terms of showing us outer space and in terms of showing us how everything functions inside the ship that they're on.
Right.
But again, for me, the hardest thing to deal with is the fact that they kept going back for those crew members. And it's like, once you realize that one crew member's dead by, and I'm going to spoil this here, disintegration, basically, from swallowing an organism, done, I'm out. But they kept going back. They went back for some engineers who were clearly, you know, dead and gone after a while. You know, they went back again because, what was the other reason that they went back? Oh yes, they still were searching for the first human being ever.
Or answers, or the creator.
Yeah, and once they found out that creator, I don't want to spoil that. Once they found the creator, and they got the answer of who the creator was, why they were there in the first place.
Who was the creator?
You want me to actually spoil that?
Yeah. I want your take on this, see if we're looking at it in the same way.
The creator, in my opinion, I suppose, would have been the first human being ever who they found towards the final act of the film.
Okay.
And while that doesn't necessarily make that human being God, to them it would be God. And so once they found that entity, I will call it an entity for the lack of a better term, that should have been, okay, we have our answer. He does or does not like us. We are free to go. What would be the purpose of staying and talking with that entity?
Because you've come such a long way.
That's what they argued when they met him, but really, like...
I mean, come on, if you spend trillions of dollars and you've been asleep 2 years in the spaceship, you're not just, it's not just a pit stop. You're just going to, stop off and get some donuts and a big gulp and then just move on. I mean, you're going to, want to hang around.
But with the reaction they got from the entity, wouldn't you say that it would be a good idea to exit then?
Finally, yes. Once they got that reaction, yes.
And even then they didn't want to leave.
Well, again, you've come a long way.
Well, a specific character that we won't mention is really the reason, like we said, that they came all that long way. And it was heartbreaking for him to get the answer he got, for sure. That was the one emotional moment for me in the entire film. That was the one time I cared, despite the man's level of greed.
This being said, the scene of the year so far, though.
You mean the scene where they find?
No, come on. The abortion scene is the scene of the year.
Yes and no.
No, it is. I mean, there is a scene in which one of the characters has to get the alien out of her body cavity before it bursts, and come on, that was a showstopper. There was nothing more memorable about this film than that, and I can't think of another movie this year so far that has had a scene that intense.
I think what happened at the film's not the very end, but when things had settled down after most of the plot had been resolved and you thought everything was safe and it wasn't, that was a better scene.
No, it wasn't.
You don't know?
No.
Because then it answered the question of how a certain entity that you all have been
The question was lame to begin with. The abortion scene was the scene.
I guess we'll have to agree to disagree, but at least we agree
it's okay
that
if you're wrong, that's fine.
I guess the one other thing I want to say about this, to appease fans of this franchise, the one thing I do want to say is this. You do see a xenomorph at the end of the film, and it is no more unsettling than it was when you saw it in Alien in 1979. It's what you expected.
I will say this. I did like the fact that they do something with the DNA question.
Yeah, that was interesting and unique, but they didn't expand on it.
Well, they're going to expand. Well, I'm sure they'll expand on it in the next film because obviously they're hoping to make another film. I mean, it's left completely wide open.
And Noomi Rapace recently said in a statement that she would star in Prometheus.
Of course she would. Yeah, and she's wonderful.
She's one of the crowning jewels of this movie.
But that connection they make with the DNA, our DNA, and the alien, I mean, that's the type of thing I wanted from the film. Because then it makes you think about the implications of that in the other movies and what that means and how close we are, actually how close we are genetically to that. I thought that was a masterstroke. Let me ask you this. I had someone drop me an email. They'd read my review of it, and they had a question as far as what to make of the prologue of the film, in which we see the humanoid. I'm just going to call it a humanoid because it is human-like, but it isn't like us.
Right.
The humanoid drink this thing that it drinks.
Yes.
And then it disintegrates and falls into the water, the waterfall of this planet.
Yes.
What does that mean, do you think? I mean, how does that connect to the rest of the story? What was the purpose of that? I have my own thoughts, but
I don't. Honestly, when I saw that, I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. I think I'm curious because my one question would be: did he know that what he drank was going to do that?
I'm going to say no.
Because I mean, I don't know. I mean, he would seem to wait a long time for that to happen before he actually digested what he drank. A long time for. Like 2 minutes. He waited 2 whole minutes. He was thinking about it. He's like, no, you know what? I'm going to drink this. And then he disintegrated. So I don't. What is your thought about this? Is it an evolutionary thing, like we have to die to live?
You mean a resurrection type thing?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think he was a curious being. I think he didn't know what was going to happen.
Okay.
I think that he was hoping for some profound transformation.
Something that would make him more godlike?
Who knows? I don't know. I mean, come on, that's completely left open. I chalk it up to curiosity.
Okay.
Just as we are curious.
All right, fair enough.
And it doesn't go quite as well as he wanted. I think then, though...
Oh, not at all.
I think, though, once he falls into the water, though, that he infects the water supply of the planet.
I would agree there.
You know, and I think that's our connection at that point, because we then do see this manifest itself later in the film.
Agreed.
So I think that's the connection. I think that the planet itself is tainted at that point.
What would you grade Prometheus? Because
I gave it 2.5.
2.5?
I gave it 2.5 because, like I say, it's expertly made. I mean, it's a gorgeous film. For an alien movie, it's a pretty good alien movie.
Yeah.
It's not as good as the first one. It's not
Agreed.
as good as the second one. And like I say, I'm open to the fact that I might take something away from it on later viewings. I just was hoping, with the talent and the pedigree behind it, for something more.
I was kinder. I gave it a 3. I think that
even though you said the film infuriated you before we started taping,
Yeah.
you still gave it a marginally positive review.
You know why?
I don't.
Because
the abortion scene.
No.
Okay.
Any film that can elicit any sort of emotional reaction from me, good or bad, deserves to be called a moderately decent film. And for me, 3 stars is a moderately decent film. When you go below that, like, say, what was the movie that we were talking about? Green Hornet. When you go below that,
Well, that's way below.
And there's no, yes, and there's nothing you can really take away, or no philosophical questions even asked, then that's when you can start to dip below 3. But when you get to ask philosophical questions, even if they're not answered in the way you want them to be, that's what defines good movie viewing for me. Make me think, make me feel. I don't care if it makes me angry. I don't care if it grosses me out. If you can make me think and you can make me feel on a decent level, on a level where I can walk out of the theater, or in my case, roll, and out and ask questions, or want to know why things infuriated me so much, then that's what deserves a 3 in my book.
One last question. You went to the first night open. Was it crowded? Was it sold out?
I didn't go to the first night. I went yesterday.
Well, that's the first night. I'm talking midnight. I'm not talking midnight.
It was mildly crowded.
Okay.
Less crowded than I would have thought, but
Okay.
it was.
Well, they had it on more than one screen, but still, I'm just wondering how this thing's going to do the first weekend.
I don't even know. I wouldn't be able to guess with this one. But I do want to talk with you about Men in Black 3, because I do have a lot to say about that. But
when do you not have a lot to say about a movie, Chike? When do you not?
I think that's our job, is it not?
I don't know.
I mean, I've lost track of that too.
Go ahead.
So Men in Black 3 is the second sequel to the Men in Black franchise, and it's an interesting one. You take the time to see J and K back in action as partners, and
a nice opening sequence. I love that sequence in Chinatown. That was well done.
Yes, it was very well done. You get Nicole Scherzinger as a guest appearance in the prologue.
Not enough of her.
Not enough of her. No. But you know, I thought it was a very solid film. You have Kay being hunted after by this guy named Boris the Animal, played by Jermaine Clement of Flight of the Conchords fame.
That could have been played by anyone, because he was completely unrecognizable.
Yes, agreed.
But he did a great job. I like that villain.
He did a brilliant job, in my opinion. Better than Laura Flynn Boyle.
Not as good as Vincent D'Onofrio.
Oh, no. Nothing will touch that.
I have said for years that guy should have gotten at least an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor. I thought he was brilliant in Men in Black.
He really was.
He was
really
fantastic.
Was.
Yeah.
So for me, here's the whole plot. Basically, Boris the Animal hunts after Kay, tried to assassinate him in present day, decides, you know what, that didn't go so well. I'm going to go back in time and do it that way.
And he goes back in time to do that way, so he will have his arm again.
Yes, because apparently Kay shot off his arm with a freeze gun.
Right, so that's the whole purpose of going back in time.
Which, I know what you all are thinking, oh, that's a horrible reason for a villain to... No, there's point to that. So basically what happens is Jay wakes up in the present, realizes, oh crap, Kay is gone, why is Kay gone? And nobody remembers him, so he has to go back in time and basically stop Boris the Animal from killing Kay. But I do have one issue with this movie that I'm going to raise right now, and it's the fact that one major issue that just bugs me to no end.
The chocolate milk thing.
No.
Okay.
That was fine. For me, the one major issue of the film is the fact that he disobeys the one rule, the main rule of time travel that the guy told him not to disobey, which is do not run into Kay.
Okay, time out here. We need to have a talk.
Okay.
Okay. You said with Prometheus that you had a problem with them not leaving. Okay. Now you say you have a problem with him breaking the one rule. If these things don't occur, we have no story. This is basic plotting. Okay.
But if he
avoids that, if he follows that rule, we have no movie. It becomes dull. How could we not want to see them interact?
Yeah. Okay.
You need that. You can't object to
basic... But there needed to be a consequence for him doing that, and there was none.
Not true.
Okay.
At the end...
At the very end, there's a consequence, but it's a very...
Not true.
Well, no, it's not minor either.
He then, the whole point of this is that he then looks at the relationship
differently.
Completely differently. It all makes sense. It deepens the relationship.
Is that a consequence, though?
I wouldn't say it's a consequence, but it's an effect. It's a positive effect.
Fair enough.
We're gonna go rounds on this one. I can see. Go ahead.
Yes. For me, I like Men in Black 3 a lot better than most critics have so far. And let me tell you why. There's a level of emotional resonance in this film that was not present in Men in Black 2.
Yeah, I agree completely.
The look at the Agent J and K relationship is really what I wanted from the second film. Just keep showing me different ways to deepen their relationship. I don't care if Tommy Lee Jones repeatedly plays the curmudgeon of the group, as long as you see the deepening of their relationship. See why it exists. See why they work, what makes them tick, what makes them feel. And I got that in Men in Black 3.
And he plays the curmudgeon to very funny effect here.
Right,
He's
and
got a
he's
couple
only
of
in a
great
few
scenes.
scenes.
He's only in a few scenes, but his presence is there. And I agree with you completely. The movie made me walk away with a completely different look at the whole thing. And it's funny that I felt that way because I don't know, I'm sure you've been following the production history of this thing.
Yes, it was.
I mean, they started before they had a complete script. They actually shut production down to work on the third act. So I was kind of dreading it. I was like, oh, well, this is going to be a disaster. And it's one of those few instances, I think, where you see, wow, they were really smart to shut things down, get it done right, and then go back and have it turn out as well as it did.
And it had a terrific point of emotional resonance towards the film's final act during the final battle.
Yeah.
When we realized something that happened with K and J in the past together.
Which affects
the present, and why, in effect, K is pretty much such a curmudgeon. I think he feels partly responsible.
He feels partly responsible for something that happens, but also you look at him in a different light for what he has done over the years. You know,
he has to be the silent hero.
The responsibility that he has taken on that we really didn't know about, and also why he recruits the Will Smith character in the first one. It all makes sense. And like I say, hopefully they stop here.
I don't want them to stop here because
I have mixed emotions because I don't know how then they follow up with something as good.
I just want the characters to be further completely explored. You've looked at the relationship between J and K. Now show me what J feels. Show me why J feels lonely.
The only way I think you can do it is the next one, the Tommy Lee Jones character retires. Because
he did that in the first one, though.
Well, I know, but he's back. But still, he's obviously an active agent here. He's getting up in years. So I'm assuming, he retires and you bring in someone else.
I want the emotional resonance of knowing exactly what K feels, where the isolation of working with the MIB comes in for him, as well as, you could tie that in with K retiring, him feeling like, there was a loneliness factor in MIB too, but it wasn't properly explored with Agent J. And that's my problem. If you can find a way to make that work, really give him some sort of emotional storyline. Doesn't have to really be a love interest. Maybe he sees a family member that has some sort of ties into what happened with the MIB, someone else. Something like that where, he has a connection to the past that he has to feel like he has to avenge, so to speak, and that will work for me for MIB4. And you could have Tommy Lee Jones advising, Agent J's character, Slick, you need to stay away from this because there are things that you still don't understand about the way the world works, things of that nature. Something in that realm would work for me for an MIB4. Do you agree or disagree?
Sounds good.
Okay. Now, you saw 2 other films this weekend.
Yes. Yeah.
Madagascar and what was the other?
Madagascar 3 and then Snow White.
Which one would you like to tackle first?
Let's go Snow White real quick. Second Snow White film of the year after Mirror, Mirror. I know Disney actually had a third one planned, which I had read about not too long ago. First time I'd read about it. in which the dwarves apparently were going to be ninja-like warriors, believe it or not. And Saoirse Ronan from Hannah was going to be Snow White.
I support that.
Well, it's been canceled. The debacle that was John Carter, the financial hit Disney took, has them now looking at budgets of films from now on, and that one got nixed.
I feel really bad for Andrew Stanton for that, by the way.
Yeah, he'll take his licks for that one for a while. John Carter out this week on video, though. Check it out if you haven't seen it.
Please do.
Snow White, though, and the Huntsman, a much darker look at the tale. Charlize Theron as the ultimate Ice Queen, who takes over the kingdom, and the kingdom becomes just a blighted area in which all life has been sucked out of it. It really reminded me of Throne of Blood by Kurosawa, which he filmed on an island which had black sand or volcanic ash that had dried. If you haven't seen Throne of Blood, check it out. Not only is it filmed in black and white, but you can tell the color is just desaturated, and it's just a blighted, dead-looking film. Okay. And they recreate that here in modern day with modern day techniques in Snow White and the Huntsman. Kristen Stewart is Snow White. Chris Hemsworth, right? I get him mixed up with Mr. Miley now. Chris is the Huntsman. He does quite a good job here. His huntsman is haunted. His wife has died. He's a bit of a drunk. He's lost all hope. We find out that the queen has something to do with his wife's death.
Of course she would.
He has really nothing left to live for, so when the queen deputes him to go and find Snow White, who's wandered into the dark forest, he says, what the heck, might as well go. Dark Forest is quite a place in this film. I really liked it a lot. Scary, scary place. We get images of piles of dead birds with maggots teeming in them. We get images of flowers that are bleeding. A lot of beetles. We run into a troll who really hates it when you cross his bridge and not tell him. A lot of cool stuff here. And birds are a recurring motif in the film.
That's interesting.
It is interesting. Finches seem to be Snow White's motif, and they often lead her out of trouble. Crows are the motif for the queen. If you've seen the clip, she in fact turns into a flock of crows at one point. That doesn't work out too well for her, and when she comes back to the castle and transforms herself back into the queen, it doesn't go too well because some of the crows were hurt on this excursion.
Ooh.
Interesting scene. Like I've read some criticism in which they say there's 3 storylines going on here and none of them congeal. I don't really necessarily agree with that. There is the Lord of the Rings storyline, of course. I mean, this movie is a complete echo of that because we see the 8 dwarfs, there are 8 dwarfs this time out, who become warriors because they've been outcast from society, and they get together a group and they're going to go and take over the castle again. Snow White becomes a Joan of Arc type character as well towards the end. Yeah. And there's a lot of Christian iconography throughout this thing. She runs in, they take her to this place called Sanctuary, the dwarfs do, and it's obviously Eden. And she runs into a white stag with a huge rack of antlers, which is supposed to represent God. And at one point earlier on in the film, she says Hail Mary, the Hail Mary, when she's in trouble. So she's definitely a Christian figure here. She is the savior, she is the martyr that's supposed to bring the kingdom back.
Would you say that that's different from what you've heard in the traditional telling of the tale?
I went back and read the story. Yes, very much. It's very much. And I like the fact that they were trying to get something a bit deeper going on here.
Is it a welcome change?
I thought it was. I mean, it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. I like when they take old stories and they try to intelligently put more layers in, and I thought that that was the case. Visually, it's dynamic. It's actually really dynamite. I wanted to see more of the troll, but I guess, you know, you should be left wanting at times. And I know they're planning a sequel all of a sudden. This thing did better than they thought the first weekend. So it looks like they're going to go back. I don't know what they're going to do with it.
I heard it was going to be a spin-off involving the Huntsman.
Probably, but you know.
I was going to say, what did you think of Madagascar 3?
Much more fun than I thought it would be.
Okay.
I'm just going to say one thing real quick because I know we're short on time.
Yes.
Stefano the sea lion. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, a lot of people like Stefano.
Oh, Stefano the sea lion, voiced by Martin Short. The four main characters, they end up buying a zoo, or I'm sorry, a circus. It's the worst circus ever in the history of circuses, but they're going to transform it in the hope that an American promoter will notice it and bring the circus back to America so that they can finally get back to New York. This is the worst zoo, the worst circus. I mean, all the acts are horrible. They're just awful, god awful, and Stefano has no idea what to do. He's a sea lion. He doesn't even know how to play the little horn things with his nose like most sea lions do.
Oh, wow.
And as Stefano says at one point in the movie, he says, "I'm a little bit of below average intelligence." And he talks like that throughout the film.
That's
A little bit of below.
I have to ask, have you seen Brave yet?
Have not. Had an opportunity, could not make it up to the city, but I am very much looking forward to it. I have a feeling it's going to get Pixar back on track.
Brilliant film. I mean, it's going to be better than Cars 2, of course. Anything Pixar makes is better than Cars 2.
I agree.
Are there any other movies that you're looking forward to or that you really want to see?
I think we mentioned this one earlier in the year. Seeking a Friend for the End of the World comes out in 2 weeks.
Right, who is in that?
Keira Knightley.
Yes,
and Steve Carell.
Yeah, that's right.
And Patton Oswalt is in it as well. So that's good. I'm looking forward to Total Recall in August.
Okay.
With Colin Farrell. I think that's going to be an unexpected surprise.
How do you feel about The Great Gatsby by Baz Luhrmann?
I vomit every time I think of the word Baz Luhrmann or the name Baz Luhrmann, but that's just me.
Okay, fair enough. I did have one other question for you involving the movies. So you know that the new Spider-Man film is coming out within the next month or so. How do you think the telling in terms of it being a bit darker in tone is going to help or hurt the film when it comes out in July?
I don't think it's going to hurt it at all. I think that this movie is going to exceed expectations. I know a lot of fans were dreading it. But as more trailers come out, it just seems as though they have technically just nailed this thing. It looks as though the casting is just spot on. And it's neat to see the lizard. I'm really glad they did not do that villain in previous movies because I think the special effects techniques have finally caught up to the fact where you can do him justice. I am really, I wasn't really looking forward to it, but the more I see of it, I'm like thinking, man, I think this is going to be good.
Yeah, Dark Knight.
And even in 3D, I'm really anxious to see because that 3D preview is incredible.
Well, yeah, man. That 3D is going to be great. Although my money is still on The Dark Knight to take.
See, I don't even mention that anymore because everyone's expecting that. Everyone's looking forward to it. It's a given.
It's a given. All right, fair enough. So I guess until next time, I'm Chike Coleman, and this has been Real Review Cinematic Underground. We'll see you next week.